House of Representatives directs CBN to suspend proposed introduction of cybersecurity levy on electronic transactions.
The Cyber Crimes Act shall be implemented in error at a time when Nigerians are experiencing the aftermath of multiple removal of subsidies.
First Ladies Empowerment Programs ignite more interest as other countries seek collaboration with Nigeria.
You wouldn't be here if you didn't have, faith in this administration. And I want to really appreciate that.
Nigeria ready to receive visiting Prince Harry and Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, today.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on Cyber Crime Act.
A few days ago, Yenre, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, directed banks to initiate the cybersecurity levy deduction process effective May 20, 2024.
Victor, and that directive was in line with the provision of Section 44, subsection 2 of the Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention Act 2024, a legislative effort in Nigeria aimed at addressing and combating the rising spate of cybercrime in the country.
Now, the 0.5% levy, equivalent of 0.5% of all electronic transactions valued by businesses, is to be remitted to the National Cybersecurity Fund, and you begin to wonder, how much does this amount to? I guess we'll get to that.
Of course, and you said 0.5%. There are too many figures flying around. Some say 0.005%. All of that, I'm sure you get clarification in the course of the program. Now, the CBN directive has generated mixed reactions, of course, from various groups and stakeholders.
Right. Some experts describe it as the right step to address the challenge of cybercrime on banking transactions, while many others view it as an additional economic burden on the individuals.
Well, the House of Representatives, however, directed the CBN to halt implementation of the cybersecurity levy as it violates the word and spirit of Section 44 of the Cybercrime Act.
And the Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention Act, enacted by the National Assembly, is to, among others, create a safer online environment, protect individuals and businesses from threats, and reinforce the country's cybercrime laws. Now,
the big question is, how would the agencies saddled with the responsibility of protecting electronic transactions be funded? What is the rationale behind the promulgation of the Cybercrime Act by the National Assembly? Another question is the Act's, especially the provision as regards the cybersecurity levy, meant for companies, individuals, or both?
Well, there are certainly more questions than answers, Yenre. How do you, for instance, arrive at 0.5% to be deducted for the electronic transactions? What kinds of companies are eligible for this levy? And why is the National Assembly calling for stoppage of the implementation of the law promulgated by the legislators? Well, it is on these notes that I welcome you to the program. I am Victor Azu.
Questions and questions, Victor. But, what is the best way to protect individuals and corporate entities from cyber attacks on their transactions is, of course, one question that needs to be addressed. I'm Henry John. I join my colleague, Victor, to welcome you to the program. We're live on the network service of the NTA. The complimentary segment talking about the newspaper review will be coming up shortly. But for now, we have our colleague who also happens to be on the business desk having the morning news this morning. So I'd like to just hear his take about the cybercrime levy. Musa, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning.
So what do you think about this levy?
Well, it's something that the public should discuss and probably decide which way to go.
True. All right, so let's have the morning news.
Okay. Well, good morning, Nigeria. Here's the morning news. After returning from his trips to the Netherlands and Saudi Arabia, President Bola Tinubu has continued with his official engagements. The president met with several ministers and received some state governors at the State House, including Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State, Caleb Muftuwan of Plateau State, and Ubasani of Kaduna State. Although details of the successive meetings were not disclosed to the press, Inspector General of Police was also spotted at the State House, apparently briefing the President on developments within the police force. Preparations are underway for the highly anticipated visit of Prince Harry and his wife Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, to Nigeria today. According to Air Vice Marshal Abidemi Timothy, Director of Sports at the Defense Headquarters, the royal couple's visit will pave the way for the development of a state-of-the-art center for the management of wounded soldiers, increasing Nigeria's chances of hosting the Invictus game in the future.
DNA genealogy test, and it was confirmed that she is 43% Nigerian. She's also looking forward to come to Nigeria as part of our ancestry and our lineage.
The Invictus Games is an international sporting event that promotes physical and mental recovery for wounded soldiers worldwide. During their private visit, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan will attend sporting events, visit the 44 Military Reference Hospital in Kaduna to interact with wounded soldiers, and make an appearance in Lagos. Efforts by Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu to empower women and youths have gained global recognition, with the Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, Michael Freeman, seeking collaboration. The ambassador has proposed establishing computer classrooms to rehabilitate and empower young female victims of human trafficking in Nigeria.
Show young Nigerians that their future is in Nigeria and not somewhere else.
Support we have from, foreign friends, I will put it in that context, has quite been encouraging, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have, faith in this administration.
The High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, sitting in Maitama, has granted bail to Hadi Sirika, former Minister of Aviation, and 3 others. Justice Silvanus Origi, the trial judge, admitted the 4 defendants to bail in the sum of 100 million naira each, with 2 shorties like some.
Issues that were introduced, like the Nigerian Airways, the Ethiopia something, which we added to it, so it was not there originally. But Nigerian Air matter is there are 2 counts on it. That's why we amended it.
More fugitives who escaped from the Suleja Custodial Center have been recaptured and are back in custody. The Minister of Interior, Olubumi Tunji Ojo, revealed this during an inspection of the ongoing renovation work at the Kuje Custodial Center. The Minister also visited the National Fire Academy in Sheda, Kwali, to assess the facilities.
To make sure that our correctional centers are safe, our correctional centers are foolproof to attack, and our correctional centers are national assets that must be protected.
Now, the Senate has passed the bill to amend the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act with provisions for stiffer penalties on drug offenders. Section 11 of the Act, has amended, prescribes death sentence for individuals found guilty of illegally importing, producing, manufacturing, processing, planting, or growing drugs.
To be sentenced to death, to make it a capital offense.
The House of Representatives has asked the Central Bank of Nigeria to suspend the proposed introduction of cybersecurity levy on electronic transactions. Adopted a motion by Minority Leader Kingsley Chinda. The House notes that the proposed 0.5% levy on electronic transactions is open to multiple interpretations as an additional tax burden on citizens.
The Cyber Crimes Act shall be implemented in error at a time when Nigerians are experiencing the aftermath of multiple removal of subsidies.
This motion is referred to the Committee on Banking Regulation.
Well, those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Victor and Iri after the commercial break.
Fellow Nigerians, it is a good thing to be Nigerian. Good news! The Office of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is organizing the National Fabric Competition, the #One Nigeria Unity Fabric Competition. The aim is to create a fabric design that would be indigenous to Nigeria, showcasing our culture and unity. This competition is looking out for creativity, concept, and the message of unity. Open to Nigerian youths, both male and female, between the ages of 15 and 25 years. And guess what? You can apply wherever you are in the world as long as you are Nigerian. The winner of this competition goes home with a cash prize of 25 million naira. Are you sure I will not apply for this competition? Submission of entries close on Sunday, 30th of June 2024. Submit your entries by sending pictures of your designs via email to unityfabric.ofl24@statehouse.gov.ng, making sure you capture all parts of your designs. Together, let us unite Nigeria!
You should meet my best friend. She's the sweetest. Hey, bestie. How's my hair?
Which one? The one on your head or the one in your comb? Chill. All you need is Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener. It has conditioning oils, so you can say goodbye to hair breakage. Wow, love your hair.
Really? Say goodbye to hair breakage with Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Stop! No need to step out. Presenting the Good Night Power Shots. Spray 2 shots in each corner of the room. It kills mosquitoes inside without driving family outside. Good Night Power Shots. Spray inside, stay inside.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge.
My people, today now.
Today, I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
I'm the photographer of Black Milk. I have an exhibition in 8 weeks about how things get better with time. Darling Natural Twist inspired me. I'm seeing how the twists blend with her hair over time. How she actually feels more confident. She's really more beautiful every week. That's definitely worth celebrating. Darling Natural Twist. Twists that get better every day, just like you.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person. of the other religion and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
This Saturday, Newcastle United,
And Wilson!
Brighton,
It's in a good position here. Side covered well. Welbeck gets it! And Brighton lead!
Newcastle United versus Brighton, Saturday, live on Sporty TV.
SportyBet sponsors coverage of the English Premier League.
Right, thanks for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And up next on the program is Newspaper Review.
All right, we got a newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okoli Ugbaja, with us this morning. Chukwudi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yere. How are you doing?
Very well.
Good
Welcome.
to see you.
Same
Victor,
here.
Good morning.
You look more like Kabiesi this morning.
Well, I'm trying to be like you.
Really?
Yes.
Don't say that, because that would be a white lie. Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, let's take a look at the headlines on the front pages of the newspapers that we have this morning, beginning with the leadership. It leads with the crisis in Rivers, and it says, Fubara lawmakers take fight to assembly quarters. Riders, Governor hints estate may need renovation. Pro-BK lawmakers accuse Fubara of another demolition plot. Details on page 7. Above the masthead, Tinubu flags off Funtua Inland Dry Port. And that's on page 7. On page 9, you can find strikes, implement agreements with ASU, others, reps tell federal government. All right, so that's right there. And of course, we have here trending. Federal government gives POS operators 2 months to register. Numbers, CBN direct charging of cybersecurity levy. Away from all of that, looking below the picture story, we have Prince Harry, Meghan arrive in Nigeria today. Details on page 8. And of course, the trending story, that's the cybersecurity levy, National Assembly divided. That's it right here on the leadership. Looking at the Nigerian Tribune now. Cybersecurity levy takes the boldest headline, and it reads, halt implementation now, reps tell CBN. Riders, it's a huge burden on Nigerians. According to NEF, Senate Reps Committee Chairman address grey areas. Reps launch probe into procurement process in Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway. Insist relevant documents must be sent to National Assembly for approval. Details on page 12. Away from all of that, we have 37 years after, Awolowo's name still remembered for good in Nigeria. Details on page 3. Beside the picture story, we have ASU rejects wage award, insists on negotiated salary for members. And we also have the crisis in Rivers, also right here on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Senate approves death penalty for hard drug importers and dealers. Details on page 4. And finally this morning, we have Edo Court admits BTC in suit, challenging Oba of Benin's right to suspend Enugis. And the writer says, as state government washes hands of the matter, 100 priests, priestesses, palace chiefs storm court in solidarity with Oba. Details on page 3. So that's it from the Nigerian Tribune. Victor.
All right, the Nigerian pilot is here with me, and it leads with this screaming headline in red. Death sentence for hard drugs. 4 riders, Senate okays a death sentence for manufacturers, traffickers of hard drugs. prescribes maximum of 15 years imprisonment for users. Resolution reached during amendment to NDLEA Act carried out by the Red Chamber. It, however, calls for caution, discretion in signing execution orders by state governors. That story is on page 4. And just above the major story here, more fleeing inmates from Suleja Correctional Centers captured. That's according to the Minister of Interior, and you can find that story on page 5 of the Nigerian Pilot. And just a couple more. Reps probe 15 trillion naira Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway. For details, get it on page 2. And FG should prioritize modular refineries to tackle fuel scarcity. That's according to Senator Ifeanyi Ubah. Is there more? IMF backs CBN's tight monetary policy, exchange rate flexibility, etc. And finally, from the front page of the Nigerian Pilot, Tinubu commissions inland dry port in Katsina, highlights benefits. That story is also on page 4. Chukudi.
Victor, thank you very much. I would like to start on a rather human interest note. We are told that Lydia Simon, one of the girls, kidnapped from the secondary school in Chibok in 2014, has returned with 3 children. And we are saying, oh, thank God she's still alive. And also commend her for her boldness in making society know she has returned. The point is that some Chibok girls might have returned, but don't want to make any noise about it. I mean, it's like the case of a woman who suffers sexual violence. Some of them are too traumatized to let people know that such a thing happened. And if you get to know about it, some even take their own lives. So the big question is, what rehabilitation do we have for Lydia and her children? Indeed. It is very important that we, look into this, because what she went through is better imagined than experienced. That's my take on it. Now, the death sentence for hard drugs with the Red Chamber, is said to have okayed for those who manufacture and traffic. Yeah. Not those who consume. I think they are prescribing 15 years for those who consume. I don't know whether anyone could accuse the senators of overreaching themselves. The tendency in the world is for the death sentence to be de-emphasized these days. Preserve life as much as you can, even while you still punish. But of course, nations are still free to impose whatever punishment they think is condign relating to a particular crime.
And particularly when every week, it's a Sunday, NDLEA publishes every week arrested persons every week, and that tells you it's not taking a back.
It's an abating. I agree with you. That's probably why the lawmakers felt compelled to do something that would come to some people as harsh. If only to deter, the people who are behind this. If you want to actually ruin a country, feed drugs to their young population, then you introduce them to inevitable somnambulism, that is sleepwalking. They are no longer a productive force. So I understand the emotions, that must have happened in the Red Chamber there. But then remember that it is the governors who eventually would sign the death warrant or decide against it. So
and that's why they have been advised to, sign that with caution and discretion.
Yes, bringing discretion into it. There's this...
in Suleja, the fleeing inmates, more are said to have been arrested, even though no figure is put to it. The minister says it's a security issue, and he doesn't want to jeopardize the ongoing investigations and the military and security action. So he didn't put a number to it, but he said much more have been rearrested.
Victor, the minister must be in a position to say some categorical things better than you and me.
Mm-hmm.
But the poser for the minister is, how do we stem the tide of people who leave our jailhouses, you know, as if it's such a porous arrangement?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people will begin to tell you it's shame of a country and all that. Please, no shame on Nigeria. It's our dear green, white, green. But something keeps happening on and on, for crying out loud. Don't you think we should pinch ourselves somewhere and say enough is enough? How do these people get to? That's the point.
Well, he did say this is the first under his watch. And he did say that it won't happen again. And then to follow up on that, well, efforts are now being made to fortify, you know, the existing, about 9 of them, he said. Although these efforts started before this administration, but he went to inspect yesterday to say, okay,
yes,
what we've asked them to do is what they're doing.
I don't know. Fine. I know you're not sounding like the minister's PRO, because I know you are a straightforward reporter. But what we should look at is seeing a system as a continuity, not incumbency. The individual incumbent is important, but these things happen because they are systemic. Mm. The things that make them happen are within the way things run in our country. And the minister could mean well. Why would the minister not want to perform creditably? So I totally agree with the minister. But if we want to stop it, if we want to put a stop to it, something radical needs to be done.
I agree
Very
with
well
you.
said, Chukudi. Of course, it's a system that needs to be checked. You know, there's this headline about ASU in the news, and you know this worries me. Talking about you know the federal government implementing agreements reached, you know, just so that we do not get to hear.
And the reps are advising government
to you know to implement agreements. You know, it just makes me wonder why reach an agreement and then renege on it. You know, if something is not comfortable, you know it's not realistic, whether on the part of government or on the part of associations or groups or whatever. I think that you know the right thing should be done at the right time. Once you reach an agreement, then of course you should meet your part of that agreement, just so that there can be harmony and synergy.
Yeah, that's the ideal situation you are talking about there. Failure sometimes is not necessarily a refusal to obey terms, you know. What I would say is, if something happens that impinges on the ability of government to meet some of the things it has promised, that communication line must stay open.
Good.
Carry people along and all that. If government has not been doing that, you know, profoundly, they need to do that. Because if a man owes you money and he tells you, my brother, it's not as if I've forgotten, something happens to your mind. But when he owes you money,
and he's quiet,
walks past your house as if he doesn't care a hoot whether there are occupants in that house.
No, but again, besides communication, sometimes actions, you know, goes a long way in convincing the next person.
No, action would be implementing. If there are no means
what I mean is that if you're not able to meet your part of the agreement, your action should actually show that, you know, you're incapacitated, you know, to meet that agreement.
Yeah, and now, sometimes
because, for example, like you're talking about somebody owing you money and, you know, coming to tell you, I don't have it at the moment to pay. Not for you to see the person tomorrow buying a G-Wagon when he has not paid you what he owes you.
That's a point there. I want to take a point.
So in as much as you want to leave the communication line open, your actions should also show that you actually do not have it at that point in time.
Yes.
You know, that way, you know, people can, you know, come to terms with what you're saying.
Sometimes body language is actually more expressive than words of mouth, you know, from the lips. Victor, I don't know what your take is on it.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with Henry.
Because we do not want to see strikes, honestly.
It's beginning to sound like one elder in my village. Ladies, some women in the village will bring something for him to settle. He tells this one, you have won the case, you have won the case, now you all go home and leave me in peace.
All right, Chukwudi, you can also go and have your weekend in peace.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Enjoy a
much.
peaceful weekend. This time, don't break a leg. That's violent.
I'll break yours first.
All right, so
We'll
we'll
see
take
you
a
after the
break.
break.
Stay with us.
A good farmer is a craftsman of the highest order. It is said, great farmer, great nation. No farmer, no nation. Yes, let's set the ball rolling to build that great Nigeria where good food is in abundance, affordable and easily accessible. The Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, is aligning with the vision and aspiration of the administration of President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, and is organizing the Every Home a Garden competition. The competition is under the scope of agriculture of the Renewed Hope Initiative. For the competition, women are encouraged to immediately plant a garden at home, such that the harvest can provide adequate food on their table and enough to give their neighbor. This competition is open to only women. She must be a first-time farmer. The garden must be in her home, and it is open to women in every state of the Federation and the FCT. Interested participants should do a 30-second video and a picture of the garden, which indicates its location, to the office of the First Ladies of their various states. The winner of this competition will be announced in December 2024, and the winner of the competition goes home with 20 million naira. Women, join the train. Be part of the food revolution in Nigeria. What are you waiting for? Let's get to work. This message is by the Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Oga Paul, na another cough medicine you wan buy, so why you no go do the test wey I say make you go do?
Oga, make you go check this your cough. The last time I get this kind of cough wey no gree go, na madam here tell me say make I go do test. Where all the cough syrup wey I dey drink no gree work, then come do me free test, and e come show say I get tuberculosis. The medicine when they give me, all na free. Now see am, I don well kampe.
Na true Callisto stock. Go check am o, make you dey sure, because who no go, no go no.
Check that cough for tuberculosis.
If cough don't worry you past 2 weeks, if it be tuberculosis, TB test and treatment, na free. Just call the National TB Hotline for 3340 or dial *3340# to get better informate. This message now from the Federal Ministry of Health with support from the American people them.
What is the fastest way to calm an angry man? B-Bank?
By giving him money, you can take him to the other room.
Other than feet, name something that runs.
Mouth. He's a good neighbor. He's a good neighbor.
If you don't have matches, he will come and meet you. Borrow me matches.
He likes my food.
Hey.
Hello. Yeah. Baba.
I will not lie to you. It's not only conductor that do that thing. If you were anyhow in my first, wind down. Back to second. Hi, Bryce.
Hello, beautiful.
I cook food, I eat food, I dine in food.
Name something you might do if unable to pay your bills at a restaurant.
I'll run away.
I knew it. Queen Elsa. I didn't know.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
This Saturday,
Bucket!
Mine.
At full cruise. Marlon. Tony Elman!
Borussia Dortmund.
And Vayner shots, deflection. What a delightful cross, headed in by full.
Mainz versus Borussia Dortmund. Saturday, live on Sporty TV.
Sporty Bet sponsors coverage of the German Bundesliga.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. To begin our conversation on the Cybersecurity Act, here's a background report put together by our correspondent Abraham Dan Hamidu.
The Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention Act enacted by the National Assembly prescribes various offences related to cybercrime and their corresponding penalties. Its goal is to protect individuals and businesses from cyber threats and reinforce the country's cybercrime laws. However, funding the operations of the National Cybersecurity Agency and related initiatives is crucial to achieving this goal. This is where the recent directive by the Central Bank of Nigeria of a 0.5% levy on electronic transactions comes in. Equivalent to 0.5% of all electronic transactions value, the levy is to be remitted to the National Cybersecurity Fund. The deductions are set to commence 2 weeks from now, after the 6th of May 2024 directive to financial institutions and banks in the country to implement. On the other hand, the pronouncement has received mixed reactions across Nigeria, with some hailing it as a necessary step towards combating cybercrime, while others have raised concerns about the additional burden on the banking public. As the conversation continues, one thing is clear: Nigeria's cybersecurity landscape is evolving, and this new levy is a reinforcement. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will delve into Nigeria's Cybercrime Act and how it will secure government data as well as enhance national security.
All right, thank you very much, Ibrahim Hamidu, for that background report. And joining us right here in the studio to discuss the cybersecurity levy is Zachary Mejinyawa. He's head of Strategic Communication Office of the National Security Advisor. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning to you.
All right, we have also been joined here in the studio by Dr. Chukwuemeka Ojam, MNI, IT security strategy expert and a former House of Reps member, former security architect for the Metropolitan Police in the UK, former head of designs, e-borders, UK technical architect for British Telecom, and former network consultant to Galaxy Backbone. Thank you for joining us on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good morning.
All right. Also here with us to talk about the Cybersecurity Act is Jared Ilokwe, an ICT policy expert. Many thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Okay, let's begin here with Major Nyawa. As a way of laying the background and helping us understand what this is all about, what is this Cybercrime Act? And what is the Act meant to achieve? If you may, what does this 0.5% mean? What does it entail? And what's the connection?
So thank you very much for having us. It is important that we put all this into context. This journey did not start on May 6th when the CBN issued the circular. Nigeria issued its first comprehensive cybersecurity policy and strategy in 2014. That led to the enactment in 2015 of the Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention Act. In 2018, the CBN issued a circular for the implementation of aspects of the Cybercrime Act. Now, from 2015 up to now, there has been a series of activities in relation to implementing the law. Those within the industry understand and know about these activities. Regarding the recent amendment in 2014, it is from the observation that certain vagueness in the law in 2015 made stakeholders not to implement effectively, and the National Assembly began an amendment process. And in October, there was a call for memoranda. And in November, you can check it online, there was a public hearing of the amendment. And that was just to clarify certain aspects and to strengthen the monitoring mechanism of the law. And the president assented to it in February. So you can see that we have almost 8 to 9 years of history of the Cyber Crime Act. It did not start from yesterday. The levy has always been there. So it is implementation that is being strengthened now. So basically, if you look at the law, especially around Part 3, you can see major administrative and coordination mechanism developed. The role of the Office of the National Security Advisor is actually to help to coordinate security, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies in their cyber security activities. So also other law enforcement and security agencies, they have key responsibilities. Additionally, a National Cyber Security Advisory Council has been formed, and it has been holding meetings over the years. In fact, the Act requires that it meets at least 4 times in a year. And if you look at the membership of the council, it involves both federal and private sector involvement. The Auditor General of the Federation audits the Cybersecurity Fund. The Attorney General of the Federation, that's the Minister of Justice, ensures Nigeria's compliance with international cybersecurity laws and crime. So you put it into context and you see that cyber crime and cybersecurity is actually beyond national security. It is the foundation of international security today. It supports our digital economy. And with recent happening around cryptocurrency and the volume of threats emerging, you will see that there is supposed to be deepened more discussion on this, and that more Nigerians should read the law and really appreciate what the purpose is. Thank you.
All right, I'd like you to speak to us about Section 44 of this Act specifically. And then, my colleague mentioned the 0.5% levy, which the CBN directive actually talks about. But, there's been a lot of figures in the public domain. I think I've seen 0.005% coming from a president's aide. So speak to us exactly about the real figure and then what Section 44 actually says in clear terms.
So Section 44, in order to implement the Act, establish a National Cybersecurity Fund to be domiciled with the CBN. This fund is intended to support, to build resiliences around our cybersecurity architecture. More specifically, our critical national information infrastructure, which the Act has designated and called for gazetting. Now, the fund itself in Section 44.2a creates a levy of 0.005. I wish you were able to put it up.
0.005.
0.005.
Specifically from the banking transactions?
I will get there now. If you read a levy of 0.005 of electronic transactions by the specified businesses listed in the second schedule. So you go over and read what is in the second schedule. And there are about 6 entities: banks and financial institutions, internet service providers, the stock exchange, GSM, telecommunication companies. So that is what the second schedule says, specified businesses. Now, what brought about the vagueness and the weakness in implementation is that across industry, it was seen that within the legislative drafting, the sign percentage was not indicated. And several efforts and letters, sensitization, created that a bit of lacuna. To be clear, this fund already exists with the CBN, and there has been some remittances over the years, but it hasn't.
From where?
From the banking sector.
Transactions?
Yes.
Unknown to Nigerians?
No, not unknown to Nigerians, because this is a public document. If you Google now, you will see the CBN circular of 2018. In fact, there are 2 circulars. One regarding the directive to implement, the second one further clarifying on what the circular is. So it's about checking up the data and reading up. It's online. You can check it up. So, but to go about the act and why there was an amendment. Now, because of that vagueness of what does 0.005% means, then the National Assembly, in order to correct this, now started the amendment in October. And the objective was to clarify, to add that percentage sign.
So what is the figure now?
So the figure now in the 2024 is 0.5%. That's 0.5%. And using your mathematics, is 0.5 times 1 over 100. That's what? 2 zeros. 0.005. So the same value of the levy in 2015 is what is present in 2024. Because all you did was to add percentage. 0.5% is the same thing as 0.005.
Now, you say that this levy has been deducted, you know, has been in effect. Yes. Could you speak to us really about, because I can also see some publications saying that there are exemptions and all of that. Speak to us about the category of people affected, or if you like, businesses affected by this levy, and those that are exempted.
Well, yeah, of course, I'm not a financial expert, neither am I regulatory or CBN, but again, this is a public document, and it was issued on May 6. And this circular referred to an Appendix 1. And the Appendix 1 is a list of 16 exemptions. And if you look at these exemptions, you will see that salaries are exempted. You will see that educational, like school fees, exempted. Social investment programs, benefits are exempted. I'm sure others can speak specifically about the banking and other interbank exemptions. But there are 16 items which is online, is in the website of the CBN, that have been exempted from this. So probably, you know, given the technicalities, it all needs to be put in a language that is comprehensible and that is understandable for the majority of Nigerians.
You know why this has become, I mean, many say it's not a problem to want to deter cyber criminals, for instance. But why this has become such a big issue is that it is being drawn, the levies are drawn from a banking public that already feel that there's so much already been taken from them by way of deductions. That's why this is a problem. It's not a problem fighting, you know, cybercrime. That's not a problem at all. It is the source of funding that is the problem. And then, if you have a percentage, some of us are poor students of mathematics, so you pardon us. So if we put it in context, what is 0.005% of 1,000 naira, for instance?
0.05%.
Okay, 0.0 now.
And that is why we should talk more about Section 44. Because there are many other sources of funds to the National Cyber Security Fund. It is not only the levy. There are gifts and donations from multilateral organizations. There is any appropriation by the National Assembly. There is also a lot of other sources that government may determine. For example, within the Act, there are certain punishments, you know, that are accruable through maybe judgments or certain government, private sectors not undertaking certain responsibilities, so they are charged. So the fund has many other sources. And then Section 44.5 now said that the fund may be utilized at least 40% may be utilized for programs relating to counter-terrorism and
Imagine
violent
what-
extremism.
I think I want to pause you at this point. We'll definitely come back to you. But let's get to Dr. Ujam now. You are an IT security strategy expert, and then you have experience not just in Nigeria, but outside the country.
Yep.
Speak to us about this act as a Nigerian. Do you really think that the components of this act, has what it takes to secure, if you like, government data, improve national security, and affect the average Nigerian on the street listening to you at this point?
So thank you. Well, the short answer is yes. It certainly, I've read the act. It's a robust act and it's a starting point, it's a good starting point, a basis for Nigeria to start protecting its cyber assets. But let me digress a bit. Your co-anchor did say that many people are poor mathematicians. And so let's get it right, what is written there. 0.5% is the same thing as 0.005. Stop. Don't add percent to 0.005.
Okay. Okay.
So we must distinguish that. 0.5% is the same in value as 0.005. I didn't say percent.
Okay.
So we must distinguish that. Now, is this global best practice? Most certainly. In foreign climes, this kind of levy is masked under digital service tax. So that such deductions exist. Do we need to protect our assets? Most definitely. I've been in a different forum and I've said protecting our assets is an expensive venture, but it is a necessary venture. We cannot run away from it. What the common man identifies as cybercrime is attack on his or her financial, transactions. But there are a myriad of other things. The National Security Advisor's Office is overseeing so many other things that the Nigerian public do not see. Let me go the way of extreme nuclear warfare. Yes, we're not, I won't stray into things that, nuclear armament, but that's one area you can protect. Integrity of our computer systems. We do not want foreign intelligence agencies snooping in on our conversations. We're a sovereign nation, so we should be able to protect ourselves. So that's cyber, and we are continuously under attack. It's just that the public do not know that. And for as long as you wake up every morning and everything is stable, you don't think that there are people behind the scenes working very hard to protect you.
Other clients that you're talking about now,
Yeah.
do they raise funds for this, cybersecurity from the banking sector, just like we're trying to do now?
So as I said, it is masked. Some countries mask it under the digital service tax. So it is a charge on transactions.
Banking transactions.
Yes, banking transactions.
All right, we'll get back to you.
Let me stay a bit with him.
Okay.
Now, let me call you honorable for the first time today, because that part appears to be getting lost. You were a member of the House of Reps.
Yes, I was.
And you understand the workings of the legislature. You have a sense of it, even if you are not there today. So why do you think that the legislators who themselves made this law a reality are now saying, stop now, don't implement?
So, you see, as a legislator, you are representing people. You have a constituency. So it is very likely, and let's not shy away from the fact that truly the public are shouting, and the public have their representatives. And so all they're doing is echoing what their constituents are telling them. But the fact still remains, is it necessary for us to protect our cyber infrastructure? Yes. Do we need to fund it? Of course. So my colleagues in the National Assembly are just echoing what they have to do that for their constituents to see that they're representing them.
So you don't think it's the right thing to do?
That what is not the right
what the
thing
reps
to
are doing?
Oh, no,
asking for a halt?
That's their job. That's their job. They can ask for a halt, but that, it was passed by them. So they're just asking for a halt.
But they did
because they're
say
concerned.
somewhere that it's not as it was passed. What is passed is not what is being implemented. It appears that some things are now alien to the law that they passed.
Well, that would be very strange because both chambers would have passed it and sent to Mr. President for assent. Remember, this is just an amendment to an existing act of Parliament.
All right. Dr. Ujam, thank you so much. Gerard Ilukwe, you have listened to the conversation. I'm sure you have seen the act yourself. But you see, what comes to my mind at this point is the fact that electronic payment transactions hit an all-time high in 2023, from 55% to about 600 trillion naira, compared to 387 trillion naira in 2022. That is huge. Now, do you see this directive affecting electronic transactions and, if you like, by extension, the cashless policy of the federal government? I say this because, like my colleague already mentioned, there's so many charges going on with online transactions these days, if you like, suffocating Nigerians. With this new levy, will Nigerians breathe?
Nice question. So I'll take it this way. There's a lot of uproar. I mean, everybody on social media, on conventional media, about the levy. But ultimately, things will settle. What is the cost of cash, both in real terms and in conceptual terms? How many of us remember when you would have to go somewhere, especially with the inflationary environment today? Do you really want to be carrying around a bundle of cash? Yes, the economy is going through a period, but if you revert to cash, are you going to solve one problem and start a bigger problem? How many people get robbed? Yes, there's crime and everything. When you were carrying cash, what was the probability of being robbed? If you broke into a store or a pharmacy or a shop and you said, where's all your cash? The criminal who is intending to go into a store today, what are his chances of coming out with a lot of cash? So the reversal, there is a risk of it, but in my own conviction, it will settle back down. Okay? That's a totally separate conversation, but yes, it is one of the things people are saying that, oh, they would lose, the CBN or the financial system will lose some ground in its direction towards going cashless. And by the way, there's something I read yesterday. I didn't quite go through the whole story, but there's something about China, which is the second largest economy in the world today, having to retweak some of its cashless policies. So these things should be put in the right categories. You know what I mean? Yes, there will be some unintended consequences back and forth, but I personally do not think it will significantly affect the cashless policy.
Now, will the revenues, collected from the cybercrime solely go towards, enhancing cybersecurity? How will it translate, for instance, to tangible improvements in the nation's digital ecospace? Okay,
so first of all, just a fairly significant note of correction. You said solely.
Yeah.
I remember that Mr. Mijin pointed out to the 40% that is going to be used towards terrorism-related activities. Okay, so it's not solely. Okay, now, back to your question. How will it translate tangibly? Individuals and corporates alike, every day, as we speak, are losing money to cybercrime. I have a very close friend of mine who, a few years ago, lost 26 million naira over a 24-hour period through 25 transactions on his account. And I mean, this is somebody I know, and he had to go back and forth. The only reason why he got his money back from the bank was that he was able to prove to the bank that he had, this was his business account, that he had a certain daily limit on his transactions. So I gave you a daily limit. How did we cross this daily limit? And you say it's my fault. I didn't change my daily limit. This is somebody I know. I know a corporate, a significant corporate in this country, that in the last 1 year lost 38 billion naira to cyber fraud. 38 billion naira of either customers' money or shareholders' money or money on the bottom line. So in one form or the other, everybody is affected. There are people, every time you get one message or the other said, you have won this, you have won that. Do you know how many people who think it's their lucky day and they click on it? And even if they don't lose money, they are now subject to a phishing attack. The health sector in Nigeria today, I think they launched something about digital health initiative. Now, imagine how we migrate your hospital records and my hospital records to a national online system, okay? And then all of a sudden, your records are public consumption. Forget even the financial crime. In more developed climes, the most vital information is your personal information, especially your health information, your health records. With this act and the faithful implementation of the provisions of it in terms of funding cybersecurity, right? You're going to have systems that are secure by design. Anybody in technology will tell you that the fundamental of technology is secure by design. So you have built it by design. You're not running after, how do you say, you're not closing the gate after the horse has bolted. So there are elements of this. So maybe we need to, amplify the benefits in the long term. Nigeria today ranks number 5 in incidents of cybercrime globally after Russia, Ukraine, China, and the United States. You can understand the other 4 countries. Why should we be number 5 in cybercrime?
What are the biggest cybercrime threats in Nigeria?
The biggest cybercrime, of course, we talked about cyber fraud. That's mainly in its various manifestations, either by and then you have the normal ones of malware, okay, which are international threats. And another one that people tend to not notice, not be fully aware of, is the number of advisories that Nigeria receives saying you have become a base. And it's actually another form of malware. So people clone Nigerian servers and use Nigeria as a base to launch attacks into other countries. So Nigeria gets blacklisted. Meanwhile, the person who is using Nigeria is somewhere in Eastern Europe. You see, but uses the Nigerian server, gets access to a Nigerian server, and launches an attack in Western Europe or America. And they say, oh, Nigeria has done it again. So we need, at various layers, to strengthen our cyber defenses.
Now, listening to you and some of these cyber threats you've mentioned, do you think that the banking transactions should be the target for funding, such?
Again, we like Dr. Ujam has said, we should not limit this conversation to banking. I just talked about healthcare. Another thing you have to understand, which is what I am personally passionate about, is capacity building. Even within our own economy, our own national landscape, do we have enough cybersecurity and general information technology experts? Do you know how much people spend, governments and private sector, how much is spent on implementing cybersecurity and other IT systems that goes out of the country? We're talking about Nigeria bleeding foreign exchange. Why can we not develop our own internal capacity? It is written very boldly in that act. It emphasizes capacity building in the national intelligence, security and defense, and emphasizes public-private partnerships. You have all the Kaspersky's and all the other software. Outside of the banking system, what world-class software have we built in Nigeria? Do you think that the IT associations in this country cannot come to the federal government and say, look, we demand that a certain percentage of your cybersecurity investments be made in local companies? You cannot quantify that. You cannot quantify the value that gives you. So we have to walk our talk. We keep talking about local capacity building. And at the end of the day, NOTAP and CBN are being asked to, NOTAP is being asked to sign this document that says you can go and get foreign exchange, and CBN or whatever, I think it keeps changing. It's saying, yes, we need to ship money abroad, spend money to South Africa, send money to Israel, or you want to buy from Juniper, you want to buy from, there's so many of them out there. Why can we not begin? This is software. It's not even hardware. It's not precision engineering. Why can we not begin to develop some of these applications and processes in-house, in-country?
All right, Gerard, let's hold you on there and get back to the controversy. Zachary, you see, I was asking earlier, I didn't quite get that, but let me put it this way. With the latest directive, we didn't say that 1,000 naira transaction will attract 5 naira levy. 100,000 naira attracts 50 naira.
10,000.
Is that it?
10,000 would attract 50 naira.
Or 10,000 naira, and so on. Right? Am I right?
Well, what I can talk to you is about what the law says.
Okay. You can talk to me about the figures.
Yes, there is a circular and there is an interpretation. And I'm sure between the regulators and the stakeholders, they can determine what that law means and what it really would be, especially since it is something that has been in existence.
How much do you intend to rake in from these deductions, from the levy? And how much is it that we are trying to save? Can we strike that balance?
You see, at the policy and strategic level, what we have is a plan to build a cyber security and digital safety future for Nigeria. Okay. Because you are in a certain state of development does not mean that you should not have ambitions. You need to see the sheer investment other countries make in terms of cybersecurity. And we have just heard that Nigeria is 5th. And to add to that, in hosting cyber criminals around the world. So it took 5 years of serious work in terms of legislation, training, capacity building, including setting up the computer emergency and response management system, a forensic computer laboratory, for Nigeria to ascend to the Budapest Convention, a group of 66 countries that are connected by that convention that work together to promote cybersecurity. So I cannot sit here and give you figures, but I can talk to you about the plans. It is the accountants and the holders of the funds that are best to give you figures.
Now, you said you can talk to us about the plans and talk to us about the law. Is there any provision to ensure that there's accountability in this whole process? Because, of course, that's one worry on the minds of Nigerians. It's not about getting in the money. It's about doing what you want to do exactly for the benefit of Nigerians without it being diverted. So what are the plans in that regard? So,
well, the law had an inbuilt accountability process. One, the Auditor General of the Federation will audit and provide guideline for the administration of that account. The fund is with the CBN. So, as the banker of government, they do their normal administrative, regulatory, and financial work and keeping all the records. What the NSA does, as the chair of the National Cybersecurity Council, is to administer in terms of prioritization, in terms of identifying the risk assessments, supporting law enforcement that have generated their needs. For example, now, we have a robust plan for police reform. Okay. We are weak in terms of our digitization of the security sector. If we think of the investment that is required in the next 5-10 years, just in terms of camera system, do we even begin to contemplate how much this in terms of naira? So all these kind of reforms will be determined through the meetings of the Advisory Council. If you look at the list of the Advisory Council members, there are directorate level officers from all relevant ministries, including the banks, the internet service providers. So there is already a transparent process that the fund will be administered, or is being administered. So this openness and this mechanism will ensure that there is no problem. And just to add to you, the current NSA, you all know his history. I don't think we should fear that Malam Nuhu Ribadu would oversee a heist. If it did, this is the fair. He said he was the pioneer EFCC chairman. Recently, you might have seen abroad, Mr. President mentioned this, that this is one person that has the integrity and the support. And indeed, we have an opportunity to build the foundations that we have required all these years in terms of national security. And a lot of work is being done. And that is why it must not be misconstrued that the fund is only specific to cyber security in that context. Because as at the time this law was made, we were at the heat of insurgency and terrorism in the Northeast. We seem to forget. And recently, all this has expanded into the Northwest. Even kidnapping for ransom, for example. So a lot of the solutions we require and the asset that organized criminal groups use is actually cyber related. And that is why we must transition and properly build the infrastructure. So this work is as important as building bridges, building water systems, and all the infrastructure we talk about. Because that is where we live now, and that is where the world is.
Okay, let me ask, thank you very much for the clarification you're making. Let me ask Ojam, if you have an opportunity to speak with your colleagues at the House of Reps, for instance, if you find yourself in the Green Chamber, what would you be advising them given the situation at the moment, the directive that has been given from that end to halt implementation? What would be your advice? How do you strike a balance? Because you have admitted that they have to do right by their people, by their constituents. And so what would you do?
So the first thing I'll do is to advise my colleagues to actually study and understand the positives of the bill or the act that we passed. And I will also do so by maybe creating scenarios. So for instance, an example of a cyber attack could be hijacking a telecommunication system and sending narrative that can make, cause enormous problems for the country. So for instance, as we're here having a friendly conversation, an attacker can hijack this conversation, create its own content, send out the narrative, and people are watching and think they're watching this program live. That's an instance of cyber attack. So you can imagine people are tuned into NTA and are watching a content, and the narrative is being sent out, and that narrative can burn the country. And people think they're really watching a live program. One of the essence of this Cyber Security Act is to make sure that we secure everybody's computer system. To make sure that, I know there's a part of it that goes into capacity building, training, understanding the threat environment and how to mitigate those threats.
How would you know?
Sorry.
Okay.
So you see, the cost of preventing such a scenario from occurring is unquantifiable, because you can imagine the kind of content that will go out and people are on the streets not knowing it's a false narrative that was being sent out.
Dr. Jam, I agree that this act has a lot of merits in terms of, cybersecurity and all of that we have mentioned on the program. But looking at the economy at this point in time, removal of subsidy on fuel, electricity, inflation, minimum wage is yet to be implemented. We're yet to even hear a figure and all of that. Do you really think that the timing is right?
So, honestly, there will never be a good time. So the time is now. There will never be a good time. No one wants to pay. I don't want to pay more money on anything. If I can get away with avoiding, everybody will want to avoid taxation of any form. But the response to you would be, well, if you halt now and there's an attack, what happens? You would regret not paying. So, as I said, the time is now. There's never going to be a good time.
But how do you strike the balance with their own concerns of this being an additional economic burden on Nigerians?
So remember, there are about 16 or 15 exemptions, and those exemptions do cover a wide range of activities that the populace. Your salaries are not affected.
Yeah, salaries are not affected, but you then every transaction. Let's say you get salary at the end of the month, and it's okay. I need to pay Yenre for something, I pay, and it is taken. I pay him, he's taken, I pay him. So one way short and 5, 10, 15 ways open.
Well, not necessarily. Academic, for instance, school fees, those are protected. If there's one area that I'll be suggesting, it would be maybe the healthcare area, if that could come into the exemption list. Aside that.
But what do we have a way of checking these things, these exemptions? You just talked about school fees. Like I want to do a transaction, for example.
Yep.
I want to pay to,
how
do you know it's school fees? How do you know that this is healthcare? How do you know that, I'm trying to pay my staff salary and all of that?
So remember that it's actually CBN that released its the latest circular. So they are, of course, in talks with the various banks, microfinance banks, and all that. When you're paying a school, it's a known account. It's not. You're not paying an individual. It's a school. The school registers CAC before you open an account. You know what the account is for. So, we've passed that level of not knowing where we're paying or who we're paying. What you can stress is that it's a lot of work now for the banks to be able to distinguish accounts and make sure that those exemptions are applied. So yes,
All right, Majinwa, I want to quickly get to you. You talked about the plans, when this money begins to come in and all of that. Are there specific targets or if you like benchmarks, that the government has put in place to measure the effectiveness of this levy in terms of improving cybersecurity?
Yes. The policy and strategy set up a National Cyber Security Coordination Center. That center has also other assets. For example, the NGSATs, the laboratory, forensic laboratory, and one area of critical importance is actually also strengthening the prosecution of cybercrime, because we have not really looked at the criminology in there. And these are issues that directly affect Nigerians. And the police continue to get a lot of reports. Like the issue he mentioned, the act specifically criminalizes the publication of xenophobic and hate speech with certain sentences with or without options of fine. We're Africans, we remember Radio Rwanda and all the genocide that took place. The threat is even more now. So that is in one area. Daily criminal responses. The police cybercrime unit continue to get issues of defamation, issues of pornographic and child pornography. So these are real life issues beside the Yahoo and all that. Secondly, there is the risk to the financial sector, and risk assessments have been conducted, and the threat is real. And that is why it is the responsibility of government to prevent and to protect. Building a secure technology around our internet system is a national security priority. It goes to the integrity of the country itself. Over-reliance on foreign countries and companies would not unleash the potential that Nigeria is known for. So there is a serious plan to build and strengthen own cyber security assets. Then there is protection of the critical national infrastructure. These attacks keep going on. Ransomware alone is a key threat. People have reported how their whole systems have been taken over. So increase in protection is a key target in that. Then that 40% that has been mentioned by Section 44.5, and we must see that we have degraded Boko Haram, but the ideology is still very potent. We see what is happening around the Sahel and around the world, and it remains the objectives, even within the United Nations counter-terrorism strategy, that we must counter online radicalization. It is all through the phone and through over the internet that we get these threats. For how long have we fought Boko Haram? How many years have we spent fighting, losing our armed forces and security personnel? So by dedicating this aspect of the fund, Nigeria will be able to, for example, issues of recovery by affected communities is key, issues of de-radicalization programs, issues of community engagement, issues of even deepening our unity and ensuring that we are productive. That's another aspect. Then there is whole section on protecting the digital economy. Nigeria is transitioning. The current Minister of Communication has spoken a lot about this. There is a robust plan to transition Nigeria into that. And already our youth populations are adept at technology. And we have seen over the years how some have gone into cybercrime. How do we provide positive diversions for them and their talents? It was reported in the news how the EFCC's chairman met a 17-year-old who was able to get into his phone and all that. So all this talent must not be allowed for organized criminals to take over. So there is a whole plan for example, an academy that will train our youth so that they can tap into the global economy in a positive manner. You must have followed recently the case around cryptocurrency and the volume of money in dollars that had passed through the Nigerian economy. You know, it is one point that really impacted negatively on the economy and on the dollar. At a point through the tradings of some of these cryptocurrencies, the dollar was 1,900. So meaning that at every material point, you are being affected negatively in terms of your economic wherewithal without you even realizing. So just 2-3 people getting an app, trading in cryptocurrency and determining the value of the naira. What else is a threat to national security than this? So the plan is there. The NCCC exists. It is staffed, and these trainings are ongoing. And sometimes you just need to Google. If you're interested, you will see what has been done over the last 8 years. But the point is, it has not been enough because of this lack of resources. And this is where we need to take the step forward and implement it effectively.
I just wanted to ask, sorry, now that you've mentioned, is there a role for the Ministry of Digital Economy in all of this?
Yes, yes. They are part of the National Advisory Council. they sit in the National Advisory Council, and they deal with a lot of other assets. For example, the NCC is a critical stakeholder and work closely with the Office of the National Security Advisor. But again, you see, I do know that some of this conversation is high up there, but if you look at, for example, just the United States Cybersecurity Command, you see major generals, rear admirals sitting. These are cyber warfare experts, because the new war is a cyber war. Whether it is within the Air Force, whether it is within the Navy, it is those algorithms, that mega computing strength, that determines your power and your resilience and your protection. And that is why, while US is the world power, you see that their investment, I think in the year 2024, almost around $80 billion is projected just for cybersecurity. But you find China almost as just over $11 billion. UK and Japan at around $8 billion or so. So Nigeria, more than 200 million people, the largest black country in the world, about 4 or 5 in GDP in Africa. And with all our challenges, Nigerians have been doing greatly. We have the assets, the human resource all over the world. Some of this coding, the best experts around the world are Nigerians. So, but what do we do at home? So it's a journey that is just beginning, and if we do not move quickly and do this, then we will not be able to utilize the opportunities that exist in the future.
Many thanks, Zachary. Jared, quickly get to you. When Zachary Majinwa was listing the items which the levy would address, he mentioned the financial sector. And you also mentioned, some of the experiences of people that in terms of, their funds in some financial institutions. And that leads me to wonder, or if you like, makes me to ask you, if it is the duty of government to protect the financial institutions from threats, if you like, cyber security threats. From what you have mentioned, and then in some quarters, it is stated that the staff, or if you like, of these institutions are complicit in some of these acts and may not necessarily be from outside. So talk to us about that. Shouldn't the financial institutions take up the burden, considering the fact that they charge so much, maintenance charge and all of that? They have funds to strengthen their cyber system so that the funds of their clients are safe.
Okay. Like Dr. Ujam said, the short answer could be a yes, but it's one of the realities of the environment is that we cannot just make these direct connections, right? The banks have the responsibility. Now, anybody would tell you, for example, let me just give you what's happening today. Anybody would tell you that the banks today are bleeding talent. Okay, they're losing people. Jack by everybody's, the core, especially in IT. Anybody who is qualified in technology today can get a job outside the country. So sometimes putting these structures in place, even within the banking systems, are not right. They don't have the human capital to do that. I've stressed the human capital element. It's not a journey that you can say, okay, the bank is responsible. The CBN itself is the regulator of the banking sector. Okay, the CBN issues lots of guidelines. There are lots of industry standards. There's something called PCI DSS, around and other things for financial systems like card issuance and the rest of them. All these things, Dr. Jam said, technology and the guidelines around technology are not cheap. What I would rather say is, how can this fund be used to strengthen the entire banking system? You cannot blame the bank. We've talked about that one, but let me just pivot a little bit. You cannot blame the bank for MMM. People give money to these people on their own volition. That is pure cybercrime. Okay? Even the capacity to identify, prosecute, and recover and convict. We don't have it in Nigeria. We don't have enough of it. There are scams happening every moment, everywhere. Okay? Yes, the banks have the responsibility. Okay, but what would we rather do? Secure the system, the economy, or point fingers in one direction to say, oh, bank A or bank B, I lost my money. Okay, there is also, these are cases that the ones I know. There are also cases where the individual is not aware enough. You and I know that. There are people, I've had people who, for want of a better thing to say, who due to lack of exposure have been conned. Oh, your father died and left you this amount of money. And you're believing a miracle or believing this thing that, oh yes, it is true. And all the signs are there. These guys have gone onto the internet, copied and pasted company logos and written letters, and you come out and they hand it to you, and the unsuspecting citizen falls prey. It happens on the internet, it happens everywhere. Okay, how do we build a national awareness? So I would stress, apart from capacity building in terms of skills development, I would also stress awareness building, because maybe we're not conscious of it, but we are really on fast track into being a digital economy. We're telling the youth to look for other means of livelihood. There are people who are now creatives online. They're doing shopping, they're doing everything. Instagram. How many people have ordered on Insta? And as soon as they've made their orders. I know somebody who ordered on Instagram and the site went down. There's nobody to reach. I give common man examples, but because we need to be able to relate these examples to why this act and this fund exists. When that happens, who is your recourse? Is it the Consumer Protection Commission, or is it the bank? Or are you left to your own fate and you say, oh, I wish I had known? Those monies are lost. The person who says 7,000 naira, order it, you order a belt online, or you order a fabric or something online, or even food, and you don't get it. Okay, so there is an ecosystem that is being built that has to be protected. That's what, the banks are the hub of they are the center of everything. But there are certain things the banks cannot, there are certain transactions that the banks cannot be held responsible for. You can even talk about I think there's supposed to be some insurance in place for USSD transactions. Yes, but there's all those transactions are not covered. So you're better off building your capacity to forestall
such occurrences. Thank you so much, Gerard. Let's take a break. The conversation continues. Stay with us.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying deeper. We bet solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than destination.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity. We know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
You have to meet my best friend. She's the sweetest. Hey, check out my hair.
Which one? The one on your head or the one in the sink? Relax. Next time, just use the Mega Growth Anti-Damage Relaxer. It's infused with wonder oils and conditioning proteins for visibly less hair breakage after retouching. Now your hair looks great.
Thank you.
Mega Growth Anti-Damage No-Light Cream Relaxer for visibly less hair breakage after retouching.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Oga Paul, na another cough medicine you wan buy so. Why you no go do the test wey I say make you go do?
Oga, make you go check this your cough. The last time I get this kind yeye cough wey no gree go, na madam here tell me say make I go do test. Where all the cough syrup wey I dey drink no gree work, then come do me free test, and e come show say I get tuberculosis. The medicine when they give me, all na free. Now see am, I don well kampe.
Na true Callisto stop. Go check am o. Make you dey sure because who no go, no go no.
Check that cough for tuberculosis.
If cough don't worry you past 2 weeks, if it be tuberculosis, TB test and treatment, na free. Just call the National TB Hotline for 3340 or dial *3340# to get better informate. This message now from the Federal Ministry of Health with support from the American people them.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town, Mr. and Mrs. Jaye Davis!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family Forever, the story of our lives.
This Sunday, Lazio,
Zaccagni, what a finish!
Empoli,
Winds up the shot, Cambiaghi.
Lazio versus Empoli. Live on Sporty TV.
SportyBet sponsors coverage of the Italian Serie A.
All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. Our guest is still very much with us. We're talking about the Cyber Security Act. Before we went on that break, Jared responded, to the reason government should take up, the responsibility of strengthening our cyberspace, just to ensure that Nigerians are safe in totality. And Zachary Mijinyawa wanted to respond to a point made by Jared. So let's hear you.
So we must appreciate that in the same way that the federal government of Nigeria has a responsibility to protect and to defend the territorial integrity of Nigeria, that is how it has the responsibility to protect and defend the cyberspace. It is that significant. Furthermore, it is also the responsibility of the federal government to protect individuals, entities, corporate bodies doing business in Nigeria, whether they are local or foreign. This adds up to our cybersecurity and assures businesses and investment globally. So the government cannot leave the private sector alone to manage or to handle cybersecurity in its entirety. And that is why in the Act itself, there is a requirement upon banking sector and other stakeholders to report incidences of cyber attacks. And it's actually an offense with a fine of about 2 million or so. If any institution fails to report to the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Coordination Center of any incidents. So government is integral to this, and we are implementing a national security strategy. This national security strategy has already identified economic security, financial security as integral to our national security priorities. So it is absolutely necessary. Looking at the Act, where issues like cyber terrorism was identified, and if anyone uses a computer network or system to commit a cyber terrorist act, it's actually life imprisonment. So this is how serious this is. So you just imagine that we are transitioning all that we know that is physical into the cyberspace. It is that important.
No, so if you go with all of this, would you be advocating, for instance, a similar pattern of funding for physical security, which you and I can see and relate with? Not everybody understands the cyber thing, but would you be advocating similar pattern of funding for physical security, maybe to the Nigerian Police Force, for instance?
Well, this is a matter that policy strategy people and even the relevant committees in the National Assembly can look at. What is important is that as a country, we must be able to have a strategic plan of action and be very clear about the costs of implementing that action and identify sources to fund it, whether it is direct appropriation, whether it is levies, whether it is donor support. We must be able to have a basket that identifies this. I do know that over time we have education tax and all this, but it's for the legislature or the policy people to look at the whole gamut of the plan and actually determine what box to put it. In other countries around Europe, they do this, and maybe you find that there is a lump sum of a tax, but then it is later disaggregated into certain chunks.
All right, Zachary, thank you. Dr. Ujam, I would like to find out from you, because some people in some quarters have said that instead of government to go the way of taxes and levies and all of that, maybe government should look at ways to, find a way to harness our natural resources. Every day on a daily basis, we hear stories of mineral resources being, moved from, exploited from this country, and Nigeria, our government is not, leveraging on that, to be able to raise income and be able to take care of certain things. Do you think that the way of levies and taxes is a better way to harnessing our potential as a people, agriculture, mineral resources and all of that, to be able to get all that we require to do certain things, especially the cybersecurity issue?
So the easiest way for government to get money is through taxation. That's it's just there. That's how most governments make. Aside, for instance, in Nigeria, where we're blessed with crude that we sell, other resources that we sell, taxation is synonymous with government. It's just hand in hand. That's how they make money. But I think we're mixing things. If we want to increase our revenue base by protecting our natural resources, making sure, so for instance, what happens in certain states where, yes, it is known that some of the mineral resources are being carted away, unaccounted for, that's a known problem, and therefore government should channel its energy to solving that problem. And in solving that problem, the net effect would be greater income into the coffers of government. And once government has more money, it then has more money to do solve other issues. But the world over, there's always taxation. What we should be looking for and you did ask that question earlier on, and I was excited about it. It's just more about, let's be sure that there's proper accountability of whatever resource comes into government. So I've looked through the list of the advisory council, and the membership is quite robust, and for as long as they do their duty, Nigerians will feel the net positive effect.
Now, do you think that should the National Assembly have oversight rights over this fund?
So, National Assembly won't have oversight over a particular fund. They'll have oversight over whatever department is managing that fund. So, you know, there is a committee that interfaces with the NSA's office, and the NSA does come to the National Assembly to answer questions on certain issues. So, if the National Assembly feel that the fund is being mismanaged, they will call the National Security Advisor, and they will hold a discussion. That's their job. It's a check and balance scenario.
All right, Zachary Martin, I want to ask you this question, and that's because it's a source of concern, and it's been reported in some quarters that away from the cybersecurity levy, there's also this telecommunications tax that is about to come on board by government, and that there are other fiscal measures the government is planning to put in place as a requirement for a $750 million loan from the World Bank. Is that report true?
I do not know. I'm not aware.
All right.
Okay, let me ask Gerard. Can you put a figure to it? I mean, how much can we estimate to be lost to cyber crimes in a year, for instance?
Okay. I have, the economy has grown. I can give you two figures, and one is an extrapolation. There's an article, a professional online publication, professional publication that says that as of 2018, Nigeria had lost $800 million to cybercrime. Now, if you compound that, let's say, even at a 3% rate, okay, per annum, we'll be coming close to 900, 3 to 5% rate, we'll be coming close to $900 to $1 billion in
2024,
2023, you know, so that's a figure. Then I think I read something last year where the Senate narrowed it, was specific, and spoke about $500 million. Okay, now this is that was cyber fraud, not crime, because fraud is one crime.
Crime encompasses
all. You know what I mean? So we're looking at least in the very least $1 billion a year, in the very least.
And then how much are we likely to rake in for, you know, in a year from this fund?
That would be left to the CBN for the simple reason that they have the 16 exemptions. So you cannot just do a straight line 5.5% of the volume. You have to now factor. Again, that is what there has to be a little bit of rigor. What we're seeing now is knee-jerk rejection. No, it's one more. You see, and in a sense, both sides are correct. I'm a citizen of Nigeria as well, and I live here and I work here. You can say, oh, you've done this to me, you've done this to me, you've done this to me. Okay?
I want to do this to
I want to do this to me. But this person is saying, this is my job. My job is to keep you secure. Okay? My job is not to put petrol in your tank and how much it costs to put petrol in your tank. My job is to keep you secure, because you know what? If you are not secure, you'll not even be able to travel on that road that you put petrol there. Okay? Somebody says there's what they call food inflation. Where is there food inflation? Can you relate food inflation to terrorism activities? And if you can, then you should be able to relate food inflation to this act. Because there is food inflation, because the Middle Belt and the Northwest, the agricultural economy, you know, the agri sector has lost a lot. People can't go to farm. Now, you're talking about, I don't know who spoke about minerals.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Do you know, and I'm sure you do, because this is your profession, that there is a relationship between illegal mining and terrorism funding?
Of course.
Who are the guys in Zamfara who have taken control of all those areas? And what are they doing? There are state and non-state actors who are involved in this. Foreign state actors and non-state actors locally who are funding. So when you deal with terrorism, then you can improve your capacity to derive revenue from your extractive minerals. We need to connect those dots. We're not connecting the dots.
And that's why I was asking earlier, that's why I asked Mijin Yawa earlier, if you are going to also advocate that kind of funding for physical security, which you
well,
and
that's
I
where the
can see
40% is
as
coming in. To be honest with you, I listened to that question, and I thought somebody, because it's been online, and said, tomorrow they're going to give us another tax for, you know, I think that's what I understood, that if you create a cyber security tax, tomorrow you can...
Banditry tax.
Yeah? Banditry tax and this tax. No, but there, it's in that context, which you have now explained what you meant, that is what we seem to, in each, especially people who live in Abuja and Lagos, we seem to underestimate what people go through. You're dealing with, just to give you every corner of this country. I'm from the southeast. There are parts of the southeast that people are scared of going. Northeast, northwest, north central, parts of the, the south, parts of the southwest 2-3 years ago was on fire. So there, we have a national terrorism problem. We have our cybersecurity issues, but I also stress the terrorism component. Because if you want to talk to the common man, the so-called common man, might say, I'm not online. I'll tell you something. Sorry, let me just drop this. I know that telecoms companies today are not able to build infrastructure. I know of an infrastructure provider who went into somewhere in the North Central in partnership with the state government. Okay? The government spent a lot of money, the Kaduna State government to be precise, trying to expand telecommunications into all parts of the state. And the objective was two things: security and financial inclusion. To be able to get people, this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, okay, to drive financial inclusion. As they were building some of these base stations, they were getting burnt down. In some instances, a few lives were lost. So the objective was to reach a certain near to 100% coverage, digital coverage of the state for financial inclusion and security. Because the NSA and the people in the security services will tell you, two components of security are communication and mobility. So when you degrade communication, you cannot report something, and so you cannot have the, people cannot even respond. Okay, we're talking about cameras. Okay, the world today is driven by digital surveillance and the intelligent analytics that goes behind digital surveillance. Everything that is electronic can be hacked. We do not fully appreciate how pervasive. We are at bubbling around 4,200 megawatts for the last 20 years. Nigeria's minimum power requirement is 20,000 megawatts by my own reckoning. By the time you begin to implement these power systems, how much technology in telemetry and all these systems that you need, can somebody hack into your electricity system, into your central command center in Oshobo?
All right, because of time, Gerard, I think we'll have to leave the conversation at this point, but just allow Zachary say his final thoughts on this levy in 30 seconds.
Definitely, the law is what we have. Cyber crime and cyber security is a priority. In terms of implementation, all stakeholders going forward would need to engage Nigerians and stakeholders, make clarifications, and actually so that everyone understands the details that are necessary for the implementation. But the assurance is that this is part of implementing national security strategy. Government believes strongly that technology is at the root of the solutions that we seek.
All right.
We'll pursue this.
Thank you so much, Zachary Mijinyawa, Head Strategic Communication Office of the National Security Advisor. Good to have you. Thank you so much for your insight on the program. Of course, we do appreciate Dr. Chukwuemeka Ujam, MNI, IT Security Strategy Expert, and former House of Reps member, also former security architect for the Metropolitan Police in the UK. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Thank you for your time. Jared Ilukwe, ICT Policy Expert, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank
so
you
of
for
course,
having me.
that's Good Morning Nigeria this Friday. Many thanks for being a part of it. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Yen Ray John.
And I'm Victor Azu. Thank you very much for keeping us company. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend.